Okay, I need 200 silk cloth to level tailoring. Let's see what the market looks like. What the? 1,000 gold per stack. Yesterday this was 50 gold. What happened? Every single listing is from Market King. All 500 stacks on the auction house. Same seller. This guy bought out the entire market. Hey, did you really buy out all the silk cloth just to relist it at 20 times the price?
Yep. Supply and demand, friend. I control the supply, so I set the demand price. It's called capitalism. Don't like the price? Don't buy it. Or better yet, go farm your own silk. I'll just buy that too.
This is insane. You're ruining the economy for everyone.
I'm not ruining it. I'm controlling it. There's a difference. And honestly, watching people rage about it is half the fun. To everyone asking, yes, I control the silk market. Yes, prices are staying high. No, I don't care if you think it's unfair. Welcome to Economics 101.
Hey, welcome back to MMO Madness Behind the Troll Mask. I'm your host, Boss Mode, and today we're talking about the silent trolls, the auction house manipulators who grief without throwing a single punch. These are the players who control economies, crash markets, and make the game unplayable for crafters and traders. Let's explore the dark side of MMO economics. Before we get into the infamous manipulators, let's break down how auction house manipulation actually works and what tactics these economic trolls use. First, let's define the playing field. Most MMOs have auction houses or marketplaces where players can buy and sell items. Prices are theoretically set by supply and demand. If lots of people are selling copper ore, the prices go down. If copper is scarce, the price goes up. That's basic economics. Market manipulation happens when one player or group artificially controls supply or demand to set prices that benefit them. They're not playing by market rules. They're breaking the market to their advantage. The most common tactic is to buy out and relist. You identify a commonly needed item, crafting materials, consumables, or even quest items. You buy every single listing on the auction house. Then you relist everything at a much higher price. Now you control the supply, so you control the price. This works because most players don't have the capital to compete. If you have 100,000 gold and buy out a market, regular players with 5,000 gold can't outbid you. They're forced to either pay your inflated prices or go farm the materials themselves. Another tactic is undercutting wars. You constantly undercut competitors by 1 copper. They undercut you back. You undercut again. You have deeper pockets, so you can afford to drive prices down until competitors give up. Then you buy out their listings at the artificially low price and relist higher once they're gone. Price fixing is when multiple players coordinate to control a market together. They agree to never list below a certain price. They buy out anyone who undercuts them. They create an artificial price floor. This is collusion, and it's incredibly effective. There's also market flooding. You farm or craft massive quantities of an item and dump it all on the auction house at once. Prices crash. Other players panic and sell their inventory cheap. You buy up everything at the crashed price, then slowly relist at normal prices once the market stabilizes. Commodity cornering is when you control a crucial resource that people need for endgame content. Raid consumables enchanting materials, upgrade items. People need these things to progress. So you can charge whatever you want. They'll pay because they have no choice at all. The more sophisticated manipulators use multiple accounts and add-ons that automate buying and listing. They have bots that monitor the auction house 24/7, automatically buying anything listed below their price point and relisting. They're not even at the computer, but the bot does everything. Some manipulators work in teams. One person controls material A, another controls material B, and they coordinate price changes. You need both materials for a recipe, so you have to pay inflated prices for both. And the really nasty ones deliberately crash markets just for chaos. They buy out entire commodities, then delete it. Just remove it from circulation. Now the market is empty, and desperate players will pay anything for scraps. What makes auction house manipulation silent trolling is that it doesn't look like griefing. The manipulator isn't spawn camping or ninja looting. They're just playing the market, but the effect is the same. You can't play the game the way you want because one person is controlling access to resources. All right, let's get into the Hall of Fame or infamy. These are market manipulators who became legendary for their control over server economies. This is from World of Warcraft during Wrath of the Lich King. A player called Baron decided to corner the copper market on his server. Copper is a low-level material, but it's needed for engineering, blacksmithing, and several other professions. Everyone needs it. Baron had multiple accounts and used auction house add-ons to automate his operation. For 6 months, he bought out every single copper ore listing within seconds of it being posted. His bots ran 24/7. He didn't even sell most of it back, he just hoarded it. The copper market became essentially non-existent. New players couldn't level engineering. Crafters couldn't make items. The price of anything requiring copper skyrocketed because no one could get the base materials. Players tried to compete. They'd farm copper and list it. Baron's bots bought it instantly and relisted it at 50 times the price. People tried listing at ridiculous prices thinking Baron wouldn't be able to buy it. He bought it anyway just to maintain control. The server economy warped around this one player's copper monopoly. Other materials became more valuable because people switched professions to avoid copper. The ripple effects were insane. Blizzard eventually investigated and found Baron was using automated botting, which is against TOS. They banned his accounts. When the ban happened and millions of copper ore hit the market from his stock, prices crashed so hard the copper market was unstable for weeks. Baron became a server legend. Years later, people still reference the Copper Baron as shorthand for the market manipulation. This one's from EVE Online. EVE Online's economy is real enough that economists study it. This story involves Titans, the most expensive ships in the game, worth hundreds of billions of ISK or thousands of real dollars. A player named Cores2, a real name that's public from the famous incident, predicted that a game update would make Titans more valuable. He bought several Titans before the patch, holding billions of ISK in assets. The patch came. Titans became crucial for a new mechanic. Demand skyrocketed. Cores2 sold his Titans for massive profit. But here's where it gets interesting. He'd also spread rumors before the patch about what changes were coming, creating artificial hype and driving up the prices even more. He'd manipulated not just the market, but player perception and expectations. He created the bubble. wrote it up, and crashed out before it could pop. He made trillions of ISK. CCP investigated and found he hadn't actually broken any rules. He'd used public available information and player psychology to manipulate markets, which is allowed in EVE. He'd just done it better than anyone else. Cores 2 became famous in the EVE community. He turned market manipulation into an art form. Other players studied his tactics. He was both admired and hated. This one is from Final Fantasy XIV. Final Fantasy XIV uses materia for endgame gear enhancement. One crafter on a server called Queen realized that one specific type of material was going to be crucial for the new raid tier. 2 weeks before the raid launched, she bought out the entire market of that materia type, every single listing. She also bought out all the raw materials needed to make more materia. She controlled both the supply and the ability to create new supply. When the raid launched, people needed this materia to optimize their gear. Queen was the only seller. She charged 10 times the normal price. Hundreds of players had to pay because they needed it for a progression rating. She made hundreds of millions of gil in a week, but more importantly, she controlled who could optimize their gear. If you couldn't afford her prices, you were at a disadvantage in the raid. She created economic gatekeeping for endgame content. The Final Fantasy community was furious. People reported her for market manipulation. Square Enix investigated but found she hadn't broken any rules. She just bought and sold items on the market. Hey, that's allowed. Eventually, other crafters figured out alternative materia melds that didn't require her monopolized type. The demand dropped and her market crashed. She had made a fortune, but burned her reputation permanently. This story shows how market manipulation can directly prevent people from accessing content. It's not just about gold, it's about controlling who gets to play endgame. Guild Wars 2 has legendary weapons that require precursor items to craft. Precursors are rare drops worth hundreds of gold. One player group decided to corner the precursor market. They used real money to buy gems, converted gems to gold, and bought out every precursor on the trading post. We're talking about tens of thousands of real dollars converted to in-game gold. They relisted everything at double the price. The precursor market was entirely controlled by this one group. Anyone wanting to craft a legendary had to pay their prices or get extremely lucky with a random drop. But here's where they got clever. They also bought out materials needed to craft legendary weapons. You couldn't afford the precursor, you couldn't afford the other materials either. Legendary weapons became essentially locked behind their economic control. ArenaNet investigated because using real money to manipulate the economy, it violated the spirit of the game. They didn't ban the players, but they did flood the market with precursors from special events, breaking the monopoly. The manipulators made their money back and then some, but the community blacklisted them. Their guild disbanded under pressure. They had won economically, but lost socially. This is another one from WoW. During Battle of Azeroth, a player named Chaos had hit gold cap on multiple characters. He had more gold than he could ever spend, so he decided to experiment with crashing markets for fun. He picked a commodity, say ore. He spent weeks buying out the market quietly. Then over the course of one day, he'd list millions of ore for 1 copper each. Vendor price literally giving it away below material value. The market would crash instantly. Other players would panic and dump their inventory thinking the bottom had fallen out. Chaos would then buy up everything at crash prices, delete some to reduce supply, then slowly relist at normal prices over the next week. He'd do this to a different market every month. Chaos became a thing. He wasn't trying to make money. He had too much already. He was just demonstrating his power to destabilize the economy. Players adapted by recognizing his patterns. When a market suddenly got flooded with cheap materials from known chaos alt accounts, experienced traders wouldn't panic and sell. They'd buy the cheap materials and wait for the market to recover. Eventually, Blizzard warned him for market manipulation after enough reports. He didn't get banned, but he stopped the most extreme crashes. Still, he had proven that one player with enough wealth could terrorize an economy for entertainment. This is pure trolling. He wasn't even profiting. He was just griefing the economy because he could. This one is from EVE Online. A coalition of alliances created a cartel to control the market for certain ship types and modules in key trading hubs. They had hundreds of players coordinating. They'd buy out competitors, price fix together, and use their combined wealth to maintain control. If someone tried to undercut them, the entire cartel would target that player, buying them out and flooding their other markets to hurt them financially. This wasn't one person manipulating markets. This was an organized criminal enterprise. They controlled significant portions of EVE's economy for years. CCP allowed it because this kind of economic warfare is a part of EVE's design. But it showed how market manipulation at scale can essentially create economic oligarchies that regular players can't compete against. The cartel eventually broke apart due to internal politics. Different alliances had different goals. But while it existed, it demonstrated how far market manipulation can go when multiple players coordinate. It was basically the MMO version of OPEC, except for spaceships and laser guns. So where's the line between smart trading and market manipulation as trolling? When does playing the auction house become griefing? Let's break it down. Smart trading is buying low and selling high. You notice a material is cheap on weekends when lots of people farm. So you buy then and sell on Tuesday when demand is higher. You're providing a service. You're creating price stability and convenience. This is legitimate economic gameplay. Flipping is when you buy underpriced items and relist at market value. Someone lists a rear mount for 10,000 gold when it's worth 100,000. You buy it and relist it at a fair price. You're correcting market inefficiency. This is fine. Market manipulation as trolling is when you deliberately create artificial scarcity or price inflation to harm other players. You're not correcting market inefficiency. You're creating it. You're making the game worse for everyone except for yourself. The difference is intent and impact. Smart trading helps market function better. Manipulation breaks market function for personal gain or chaos. Here's a test. Does your action make the market more accessible or less accessible? If you're buying cheap goods and selling at reasonable markup, you're making it more accessible. People can buy when they need it, not just when farmers are online. If you're buying everything and relisting it at exploitative prices, you're making it less accessible. Now only the rich players can afford it. Another test. Are you filling a gap or creating one? Smart traders fill gaps. They move goods from low demand times to high demand times, or from oversupplied markets to undersupplied ones. Manipulators create gaps. They create artificial scarcity when none should exist. And the malice test, are you doing this to optimize your profit or to demonstrate power and cause frustration? The market crash terrorist wasn't trying to make money, he was trying to cause chaos. That's griefing with economics instead of weapons. Market manipulation is trolling when it gates content behind economic barriers. When you crash a market deliberately to ruin other traders' businesses, that's griefing. When you use bots to automate market control 24/7 so no human can compete, that's griefing. The manipulators will agree it's just smart business or working as intended or adapt or die, but that's rationalization. They know they're making the game worse for others. They just don't care because their enjoyment comes from control and dominance. Some will say, if you don't like it, farm your own materials, but that misses the point. The game has an auction house for a reason, to facilitate trade and let people focus on the content they enjoy. When one person breaks that system, they're not playing smart, they're breaking the game. So how do the developers try to prevent market manipulation? And why do they keep failing? The first approach is transaction limits. Some games limit how many of an item you can list per day or how many times you can relist it. This slows down the manipulators, but it doesn't stop them. They just use multiple accounts. Second is deposit fees. Game charge a fee to list items that you forfeit if the item doesn't sell. This makes buyouts expensive because you're paying fees on items you're relisting, but wealthy manipulators can afford the fees. It's just a tax on their operation. Third is the price floors and ceilings. Games set minimum and maximum prices for items. You can't list copper for 1 million gold and you can't list it for 1 copper. This prevents extreme manipulation but creates other problems. If the floor is set wrong, it distorts the market in different ways. Fourth is stack size limits. You can't list 10,000 copper in one auction. You have to list it in smaller stacks. This makes buyouts more tedious and expensive, but it doesn't stop determined manipulators. It just slows them down and annoys regular players. Fifth is automated market balancing. If prices spike too high or drop too low, the game automatically injects or removes items from circulation through NPC vendors or rewards. This prevents extreme manipulation but makes the market feel artificial and removes player agency. Sixth is transparency and reporting. Games show detailed market history so players can see manipulation patterns. They create reporting categories for market abuse, but proving manipulation is hard. Is someone buying everything because they're manipulating or because they're legitimately stocking up? Seventh is the EVE Online approach. Allow everything and let players solve it. If someone corners a market, other players can find alternative supplies, craft it themselves, or form coalitions to break the monopoly. This creates interesting emergent gameplay, but can be brutal for casual players who just want to buy copper ore. The fundamental problem is that market manipulation is hard to distinguish from legitimate trading at small scales. It's only obviously manipulation when it's extremed, and by the time it's extreme, it's already doing damage. Developers can't perfectly balance preventing manipulation while maintaining a functioning market economy. Every solution has trade-offs. Too much restriction and the market feels fake and controlled. Too much freedom and manipulators run wild. Most games end up with band-aid solutions that slow manipulation down but don't prevent it. The really dedicated manipulators adapt to every countermeasure. They use VPNs and multiple accounts to bypass limits. They calculate deposit fees into their profit margins. They study price floors and ceilings and work within them. It's an arms race that developers are losing and probably will always lose because the manipulators are more motivated than the developers to find workarounds. Let's talk about what auction house manipulation actually does to games and players, because this isn't victimless. First, it creates economic barriers to content. If someone corners raid consumables, raiders can't afford to raid unless they're wealthy. If someone monopolizes crafting materials, crafters can't level their profession. Players are locked out of gameplay they want to do because one person controls access. Second, it drives away casual players. If you log in once a week and try to buy materials to craft, but everything costs 10 times what your limited gold can afford, you just quit crafting. You might quit the game entirely. Casual players can't compete with manipulators, so they leave. Third, it forces everyone into the market game. You wanted to raid, but now you have to become an auction house player to afford consumables. You wanted to craft, but now you have to study market manipulation to compete. The game shifts from doing content you enjoy to managing economic warfare you never signed up for. Fourth, it creates wealth inequality that mirrors real-world problems. The rich get richer because they can manipulate markets. The poor can't access opportunities to catch up. The game becomes less fun and more like an economic struggles people play games to escape from. Fifth, it destroys trust in the economy. When manipulation is rampant, players don't trust market prices. They don't know if they're getting fair value or being scammed. This makes all trading more difficult and stressful. People avoid the auction house entirely. And sixth, it makes new players quit. Imagine starting an MMO, getting to the point where you need to use the auction house, and finding out that basic materials cost more gold than you can earn in a week of playing. That's a terrible new player experience that drives people away before they even get started. The manipulators don't see this damage. They're insulated by their wealth and they enjoy the control. They don't experience the frustration of being priced out of content. They are the problem, so they don't feel the impact. But for everyone else, market manipulation makes the game significantly worse. It's silent trolling that affects thousands of players without requiring the manipulator to interact with anyone. You can ruin entire servers without saying a word in chat. Auction house manipulation is trolling in a suit and tie. It's griefing that doesn't look like griefing. It's control and chaos wrapped in economic spreadsheets. If you're a market manipulator, understand what you're actually doing. You're not just playing the economy, you're making the game worse for everyone else. You're creating barriers to content. You're driving players away. You're griefing without admitting it. There's a difference between being a smart trader who optimizes profit and being an economic terrorist who controls markets to demonstrate power. One helps the game, one hurts it. And deep down, you know which one you are. And if you're a developer, understand that market manipulation is a serious problem that needs real solutions. Band-aids and half measures aren't enough. Give players tools to access materials outside the auction house. Create NPC vendors that set price ceilings. Be willing to intervene when monopolies form. The free market doesn't work when one player controls all the supply. The auction house should be a tool for trade and convenience, not a weapon for griefing. When one player can control an entire server's access to resources, The market isn't functioning. It's broken. Next week on MMO Madness Behind the Troll Mask, we're diving into the bot that became a legend. We're talking about automated players that fooled everyone. Bot operations that became server fixtures. The blurry line between AI and actual players. You definitely don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and please support the podcast. Tell your guildmates, share it in Discord, and leave us a review. And if you've got a market manipulation story as a victim, a perpetrator, or an observer, email us at podcast@mmomadness.com. Until then, trade fair, support your server economy, and remember, monopolies aren't cool in real life or virtual ones. I'm Boss Mode, and thanks for listening.